What's up, everybody? Does this sound familiar? You're getting ready for your gig. You're plugging everything in, getting all set up, getting comfy, making sure you can see the drummer, making sure that you can hear everything. And the band leader comes over and they hand you this. What is this? It's some kind of directions of the music that you're supposed to play. Nobody wants this. Nobody needs this. This is not doing anybody any good. You're better off going to your car, closing the door, and whispering these changes into the air than you are handing this sheet to your fellow musicians. If you've experienced that and all the train wrecks that happen because of that, maybe you're a band leader and you've passed out lead sheets at your gigs and there have been kind of flat performances. That's down to probably one of two things. Either your bandmates suck, which I can't help you with, or your lead sheets suck, which I can help you with today. I'm Maness, and this is 4 ways you're messing up your lead sheets. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't take too much more effort to make a really good-looking, easy-to-follow, very clear lead sheet. Listen, this is something that I have to remind myself of as well, because it is easy to just jot down some changes and then say, well, I'll just let everybody know what's going to happen here. But I find that the more I'm not lazy and I remind myself to
just do it,
the better the gig goes. The clearer I am, the more the players understand the vision of the tune, and we can have a good time and be relaxed and be open with each other, which is ultimately the goal. Okay, so I have a couple of principles that I want to keep in mind as we go through this entire video. The first is, just like a doctor, number 1, do no harm. Your lead sheet should not make the performance of the tune worse, which I've seen time and time again. Bands getting lost, bands being just eyes on the page because they have to think and count and try to remember things. You don't want to have to remember things. So do no harm should be your very first rule. If you are doing harm, you're better off just saying, hey, learn it from the record, right? Number 2 is only the essentials. So you want to keep it simple. You want to give enough information that people know what's happening. They know the form, they know the changes, they know the melody, and all of the major landmarks and events that could happen in the tune, but no more than that. Only the essentials. No superfluous information that can confuse things or make things a little too cluttered in the player's head. Let them have some space. And number 3 is to keep it clear, especially when talking about form and melody and chord changes. You want to make it look as clear as it sounds. So let's get right down to it. This is the very first thing we've ever done on notation here on this channel. If you like this, press the like button so we know that you like this. If this is your first time on our channel, please subscribe because we do this all the time. We're always doing cool stuff like this. Join us here over at the Open Studio YouTube channel. And make sure to stay tuned till the end. I have a kind of cherry on top that will really go over well with pretty much every musician you work with. It's a bit of a wow factor. It doesn't take that much time or resources, and it just makes everything pretty special. Let's get to our lazy tune here. So you probably can't even tell what this tune is yet. Don't worry, we'll get there. But this is the very first way that you're messing up your lead sheets. And that is by not having enough information on your lead sheets. Again, we can't tell what tune this is because there's no melody. There's no title. There's nothing here to indicate what we're playing. I've literally seen charts like this. A professional musician has handed me a chart like this. But this is what we do to each other. And we then talk about it for 5 minutes when if we just spent about 5 or 10 minutes making it, it would be so much better. Anyway, so let's get to it. So at the very least, if you're going to just do changes because you don't have a lot of time or maybe you're super lazy, which by the way,
do it, just do it.
Put some slashes in there so that we know where the chords go. Like if you look at this first one again, I can't tell where some of these chord changes actually line up on the chart. It's really, really helpful to let the rhythm section know what beats the chord changes line up. But again, this isn't even a lead sheet yet. This is still just a chord chart that still doesn't even have enough information for a chord chart. For it to be a proper lead sheet, we need to have at least the chord changes and the melody. So, okay, here it is. There is the melody. So now we're getting somewhere. Do you recognize this tune yet? John Coltrane's Lazy Bird, right? So this is a lead sheet for Lazy Bird, and this is doable. Like if someone handed me this, I could be like, oh, okay, we're going to play Lazy Bird like this. And maybe they have their own changes. Maybe it's just the standard changes, but I'm still confused about a great number of things here. And if I didn't know the tune, it would be even harder. So this is the assumption that I know Lazy Bird, which luckily I do, but not everybody does. But if I were having to read this, there would be some confusion here. There's still not enough information. So what we need are a few things. I mean, first and foremost, what are those 8 bars? I think they're 8. It's kind of uneven. Yeah, it's 8 empty bars. Is that an intro? Is that a drum solo? Are we going to John Cage it until the melody starts? Let me know. Let's go to Sibelius, and we're going to add some of the vital pieces of information that we need and nothing more right now. So we've put it here in Sibelius, and we're going to add a couple of things. The first thing I want to add, so the band leader, they did tell me that this 8 bars up front here, right? That this is the intro like the record. Okay, fair enough. Well, let's put the intro like the record on there. So that's great. We want to do that intro. Totally cool. It's still, this is not good, right? So we want to add some crucial bits of information here. First, and follow me here, add the title to your charts. I can't believe I have to say this, but I do. Add the title, at the very least, to your charts. It's not that hard. Watch. Lazy Bird. Now, when you call the tune, I know what we're going to play. Even if you don't have a title, right? Maybe this is an original composition and you don't have a title for it yet. Check this out. You do now. Number 1. That's all you got to do. Something to give everyone who might have multiple sheets some kind of indication that we're working on this specific arrangement. That text is horrible, so let's do a classic font there. Okay, so now we know it's Lazy Bird. That's good. That's good. So is this intro part of the tune? Probably not. So let's start marking some of the form. This could be very, very handy for keeping everybody together, and again for keeping people understanding what's what and what's going on. So I'm just going to add some boxed text here. By the way, I'm using Sibelius as my notation software. It's the best and the worst all at the same time. So here's an intro with some box text. Okay, now we know that this is the intro. Okay, that's pretty good, actually. That's not bad, right? That looks okay. No, not really. There's still so much going on here. Like, what are the different sections? How can we maybe visually give a cue that we're in an A section and a B section? Well, again, we can add, let's just copy and paste this intro. We can add some more box text here, right? We know that this is an A section. It's easy enough. We'll make it a little bit bigger. Here's the start of the B section, yeah? I think this is our last A section. That seems about right. I'm going to bold all of these just to give our eye a little bit more to hang on to. Doesn't that look better? That looks better. I'm going to bold this too. Okay, this is better. At least I know that it's A, B, A, right? Anybody who's reading it might know it. Coming off a second ending here into a B section, it's also helpful to add things like double bar lines in sections. Like, you probably wouldn't know if there wasn't an A here that this is an A section. Let's add a little double bar there, giving our eye, again, something to grab onto. So now I have this repeat that sort of outlines the A section, right? I have this double bar here, this double bar here that outlines the B and A. So now we're talking. So this went from, right, not much information at all, like very little information to go off of, until like now we know what's going on, right? Look at this. It's Lazy Bird. This is great. Another thing that I really like to add to all of my lead sheets is the composer. Again, don't be lazy.
Just do it!
Because if you're the lead of a gig and you're, on the mic announcing things, it's good to at least help you remember who wrote what you're playing. One piece of information that I think might be crucial is somewhat of a tempo. Although this is like the last thing I like to add, because if it's a tune like Lazy Bird that you might play several different ways, you could do this tune of course, as like an up swing thing. You can do it as a straight eighth thing. You can do it whatever you want. It's one of those tunes that's very malleable, as a lot of Great American Songbook standards are and jazz standards are. So you might just add something like up. You might add nothing and just count it off however you want. If it's a style like, swing or backbeat or bossa nova or R&B or whatever, it's very specific, and you want to give the drummer some instruction, that is your chance to do it. I encourage you to do that. But if it's a tune like this that you can do and might want to do on several gigs in different ways, in different tempos, you don't need to be so specific. Okay, so I think this is pretty much all of the information that I want for this very basic lead sheets. We can get more detailed, and we will, but there's one thing that's bothering me, and that's the way that this looks. Okay, that brings us to the second way we might be messing up our lead sheets. A confusing layout can kill the performance. We have everything we need to have for this, right? We have the intro, we have all the sections clearly marked, we have the melody, we have the changes, the fonts look great. Why is this still so horrible to look at? Well, because the formatting is just awful. Look at this. This is all crammed, the 7 bars crammed into the first line. And then we have our A section starting in the second bar of the second line. There's just a random whole bar that's just on its own here for some reason. I can't tell you how many times you see stuff like this. And then the B section starts here, I guess, and then A, and then just the whole page, page 2, is just 1 bar. Why? Why is page 2 1 bar? It doesn't have to be like this. So what we want to do is format our bars and our lines in phrases. We want to do it as musical as possible so that our eye is drawn to basically the rhythm of the chart, right? To the musical phrase. Now, for most of the music that you're going to work on for this, like 99%, it's going to be in generally 4-bar chunks, right? And even software like Finale, Sibelius, Dorico, and MuseScore will put things into 4-bar chunks. You just have to know how to ask it to do that. So we're going to go to layout here. We're going to unlock this format, and then we're going to do an auto break of every 4 bars. Okay, this looks a lot better already. So we already have some more room up here for our intro. Our A section starts just beautifully right here, and the first ending is right there. We have an errant bar here, and this isn't perfect, but we can sort of borrow an idea from the real book here and put the second ending right after the first ending. We're going to make that into a system, and voila. Look at this beauty here. You know what I mean? Look at our Lazy Bird. That is a good looking lead sheet. Just have a look at this. So we have all the information. It's Lazy Bird by John Coltrane. It's up. Here's the intro here. We've got AABA. We might add even just a little bit of like solos on AABA. Yeah. So again, this is great. This gives you all the information you need. Most bands can read this very, very easily. And like I said, be kind of up and out after 1 or 2 reads through the material. This is exactly what we got. Double bars at the end of sections, so we know that a new thing is starting. We've got AABA. We don't really need that, but it's good to kind of be able to talk about. One thing you don't want with rehearsal marks for lead sheets, especially for jazz musicians, are things like bar numbers. You don't need any bar numbers on this stuff. Just the general sections will do. You don't need A, B, C, D, E, F like you would in an orchestral score. That's a whole different thing. Just a simple marking of AABA is fine. And again, that's completely optional in and of itself. If you do this right visually, you don't even need those. Okay, this is great. This is a real lead sheet. And we can even get deeper on this. Like if you want to show more information, if you want to be more specific, remember, be as clear as you need to be with the information you want. Like maybe you want to show those great voicings that Kenny Drew is playing on the intro. Maybe you want to have the coda on there, right? At the very end of the tune. Maybe there's these hits in the B section here that happen on the recording. Maybe we want those. So how do we do that? So if you want to show maybe a lot of information and be a little bit more specific, the easiest way to do that in your lead sheets for the whole band to see is with the grand staff, to use a piano staff. And then you can display things like hits, like chord voicings, like additional parts, bass lines, things like that, things that are specific that you want to show the band as a whole. So here I have our Lazy Bird, but with the grand staff, and I've added some things because I wanted to do this coda at the end. It's got this super cool ending. I wanted to show those really simple, even though they're simple voicings, I wanted to show those so that I remember how to do them. And then of course that big sharp none voicing, I wanted to have that in there. The cool thing about the grand staff, especially on software like Sibelius Finale, Dorico, is that you can then take away that bottom or top staff when you don't need it. So here when we get to the A section, we don't really need that bottom staff. We could have done slashes for sure, but if you want to save space, you can just go with the one line here. Then check it out. On the B section, right, I want those hits. Da, boom, boom, ba, boo, doo, 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 da, ga, 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 right? And I could do that by adding back in that left hand, that lower line, and I can put these hits for the rhythm section right there. Everybody sees it. It's all together, and we're all on the same page. Isn't that awesome? I've also added the key signature here so that we're clear on what key we're in. So then at the end here, I've added just the last time to take the coda, right? We don't want things like lots of written instructions about the form. The less you can do, text, paragraphs of what should happen for a lead sheet anyway, the better. I mean, if you're writing a big orchestral, original, commissioned composition, yeah, then maybe you need some detailed instructions, turn the piano upside down, use a guitar pick and a straight razor, whatever the instructions you want to give. But for a pickup gig where you're handing out lead sheets, you want to keep it as simple as possible. So while this is certainly more elaborate than our original Lazy Bird lead sheet, this is still very readable. It's still very clear and gives us a lot of options. We've got the intro, we've got the hits, we've got the coda, all done in 2 pages. Okay, the third way you're messing up your lead sheets is not with too little information, it's with too much information. And you're not lazy if you do this, but you are rather annoying. Let's go back to Sibelius and check out Thelonious Monk's Straight No Chaser, done from someone who cares way too much. So this is beyond the scope of what a lead sheet should have. Here we have the history of from Thelonious Monk's 1967 album Straight No Chaser. I'm assuming that's the version that they're taking this from. On the Columbia record label, Teo, we don't need any of that. It's for piano, bass, drums, flute, voice, trombone, horn and C, kazoo, guitar. None of this is needed. Again, we're taking away things. Okay, there's the composer, Thelonious Monk. But the born, died, no, we don't need any of that. We can definitely, like I said, do the composer, but just for this, Monk will do just fine. Everyone knows. Post, semi-harp, just get this out of here. We don't need to know that. We don't need bar numbers here. We're going to take these bar numbers off. Oh, so much better. Okay, so here we have, this is interesting. So if we look at this text here, this is giving us a roadmap. I love these. These are great. Look, piano first time, bass and drums in second time, piano solo using non-cliche chromatic-based improv third and fourth time. Bass, we don't need, this is a lead sheet. Again, this is definitely something that you just want to fill. This is way too much information, all of this. So we're losing all of that. And then let's look at our grand staff here. So, okay, well, we have this little guitar, and it's just quarter notes. You probably don't need any of that, so we're going to take that out. Let's see here. Delete from score. Yeah, let's delete that from the score, please. Okay, a little bit. It's getting better and better. Okay, so here, this is interesting. Let's just flip that around. So the bass line. So remember I said you could use the grand staff if you have a thing like bass line. This is a bass line that's obviously done from a pianist and is not what you would want the bass player to play every time. If it's something that you want the musician to do each and every time, then you can put it in the notation of a lead sheet. If not, if, for instance, you're willing to let the bass player walk the changes in whatever way they see fit, there's no reason whatsoever to give them a suggested bass line. In fact, this really is not great for the bassist. This doesn't make the bass player sound better. So you know what? We're going to just get rid of this entire line. And we're left with this. And how much better is this? So much better. So if you have too much information, you might as well just go ahead and make a full arrangement of it with parts and everything else. There's no reason to tell the guitarist exactly what to do for the duration of a lead sheet. There's no reason to write out a full bass line. That's not a lead sheet. That's an arrangement. That's an orchestration. That's a whole different animal than what we're dealing with here. So just keep that in mind. If it's something that can be generalized, that works with a lead sheet. But if it's something as specific as this needs to happen at this part every time, that's not within the scope of the lead sheet. And then you might as well just write out an arrangement with different parts, right? So that brings us to our final way that you're likely messing up your lead sheets, and that's with whack-ass chord symbols. I'm going to put it out here. If you don't play a chordal instrument, or sometimes even if you do not need to get super fancy with your chord symbols. In fact, most chordal instrumentalists would appreciate it if you simplify things. The rule of thumb is basically this. The more specific you make your chord changes, the less we're going to go off of those chord changes, right? So if you get super specific, super dogmatic, so B flat 7, sharp 11, flat 9, natural 13, that's what I'm going to play every time. I'm going to know that you want that sound. But if you just say B flat 7, that tells me, in general, that I have sort of carte blanche, if you will, of the full spectrum of B flat dominant. For instance, like say you're playing a B flat blues, like Straight No Chaser, and it's kind of B flat dominant, right? That B flat 7. If you write B flat 7, we are going to give you the spectrum. We're going to give you the ninths and the 13ths. We're going to give you little 5-1 things, little delicious tension and release moments that are going to happen inside of there. We're going to know that that's fair game, right? Unless you write out, a voicing that's specifically B flat 7, no 9, no 13 or anything like that. We're going to assume you just mean sort of the dominant geography of a B flat 7, right? B flat Mixolydian mode. If, however, you give me a B flat 9, I'm going to make sure that you get a 9. Specifically, I'm going to make sure that you get a very specific kind of ninth voicing, like that F minor 6th shape. I'm going to make sure that that ninth is prevalent because I assume if you write the ninth that it's either in the melody or that you really want that specific kind of voicing. Choral instrumentalists know that these chord symbols, they don't just represent like it has the 9 in the chord. Oftentimes it can mean a very specific shape. And the more you get to know arrangers, composers, engravers even, you get to see when they say not a 9 chord, they mean actually this kind of like F minor thing, right? Or if you say a 13, they mean specifically like this sound, right? So if you give me this, I'm going to assume, again, at first that this is what you want specifically every time. And I might start to go off the path there and give you a broader harmonic context, but it's not the same as if you give me the bare bones of B flat 7, in which I know okay, anything's probably fair game here. I mean, as long as you're not playing like something, from a specific era, but any modern player will think, okay, that's just the dominant range. But if you give me lots of extensions, I assume you want those colors in the chord every time, which is cool. If that's what you want. If you want that specific 9 shape every single time, by all means, put it in. We want to know that. If it's in the melody and important to the melody. For instance, if we're playing like Sonny Rollins' Blues 7, right? The tune Blues 7 from Saxophone Colossus. If we're playing that tune and the melody has a sharp 11 in it, I don't know the tune. Let's say I don't know the tune. It's really helpful for you to write B flat 7, sharp 11 in the chord change because I know, okay, not only is like the melody has this E natural, this sharp 11, I can assume that we're all going to blow over a Lydian dominant, which is what's going to happen, right? And maybe things will happen and I change, but at least we're starting from the base of here's sort of the general harmonic context, right? If you just give me B flat 7 here, I could do something with an E flat in it that's not off limits completely, right? And it's really the same thing with all different kinds of chords. For instance, if you give me a C minor 11, I'm going to put an F in there. Like, it's going to happen. And if that's what you want every time, that's what you're going to get, right? But if you just want general C minor, a C minor 7 will do. That gives me like an idea of, okay, this is probably a Dorian thing if we're in the key of B flat, and I can do all the things. There could be the 11 in there, the 9th could be in there, even the 13th. We know how to make those work, right? Depending on what's going on around it. But if you give me just like a specific C minor 9, I'm going to play just a C minor 9. Or if you give me a C minor 11, I'm going to do that. The basic 7 chord kind of implies it's all fair game, like the whole thing. Now, again, unless you want to be very specific and say no 9, no 11, or we're in more of a traditional context and the context clues are such, that's all cool too. But in general, most modern players are going to look at this and know that they have that full color palette of the minor 7, the Dorian thing, available to them. Another way that you can kind of mess this up with either being too specific or not specific enough is with, say, something like a sus chord, right? This is a great example. So if you give F over G to most keyboard players or guitarists or any chordal instruments, they're immediately going to gravitate towards this, literally an F triad over G. But if you don't mean this specific shape, right, an F triad over G, then don't write that. That doesn't do you any good. If you would be okay with all of us getting just a general G sus sound with all the beautiful things that can happen and letting what my father-in-law would call letting Jesse rob this train, then just write G7 sus. You don't need all that extra stuff of the F over G. Now, if you do want that specific thing, which sometimes you might, cool. By all means, write F over G. But that, like the rule is basically the more specific you are in the chord change, the less we're going to throw our own things in there. We're going to do exactly what your specificity requires us to do. And the more broad you get, the more we're going to throw ourselves in there. Again, it's not like one is better than the other. It's just, you should know this if you're writing your lead sheets for, and you're not a chordal instrument, you should know that we take that kind of seriously. That's our role. So the more specific you are, the more, well, hopefully most of us are going to try to actually obey what you're putting in there. And if you want it to be broader, then just do the basic 7 or whatever. Now, if you want very specific, like if you want an F major 7, sharp 11, flat 9, please write that. Because if the melody is a G flat, that needs to be reflected a little bit in the chord change. If you just write F major 7, we might put in a major 9. It would be, totally cool. Especially if you don't have the melody in your chord changes. You know what I'm saying? So if you want that specificity, please let us know. We're happy to do that. But if you want just more of a broad general idea of the harmonic geography, like I said, then the major 7 will do just fine. It really just depends on how specific you want to be. Some cases, you might even write out the specific voicing that you want the chordal instrument to play. And that's totally cool, actually. We really appreciate that. If it sounds best with your voicing, that's great. It's the same thing with like a bass line. If there's an ostinato and you want a particular thing, put that in your lead sheets. Now, if you're not comfortable making chord voicings or writing bass lines, then let the bass player or the chordal instrument do those things. Again, let Jesse rob this train. Jesse knows how to rob a train. Let him do it. And we're happy to also answer any questions that you might have about what works best for this. That's how you get good at stuff, is asking experts. And there's a good chance that your friends on other instruments are more of an expert on their instrument than you are. So feel free to ask them questions about what they want to see to get a particular sound. So that's pretty much it. You're going to be able to make some really beautiful looking lead sheets with just a few tweaks to what you do. One last thing. Remember our first principle? Do no harm. Well, even as I was making this video and making the lead sheet, I'm working on it. I'm kind of tinkering with it. I'm adding things. I'm seeing how it looks. One of the things that I was messing with was the melody going into the second ending. And look at what I ended up with on not just our basic lead sheet. Look at the second ending here. There's just a random D that's being held over there. And then look at it also on our full lead sheet, right? I obviously took it off there in the second ending at some point. I made this whole video and I didn't even notice that fix or what I wanted there. Look at the first ending here. There was obviously something there at some point, and now it's just two gross quarter notes and one half rest. You know what I'm saying? So this is harmful in that it's confusing because you're like, why are there just random two quarter notes? And it kind of takes you out of it. So there is a way to fix that so that you do no harm. When you're done with your lead sheet, play through it, read through it with fresh eyes. In fact, you might wait like an hour after you're finished with it, print it out, put it at your instrument, and read through it. That's usually the only way that you can see some of these things. I was working in this sheet the whole time as we're making this video, and I didn't even see it. It's a blind spot that gets created as we're working on things. We tend to just pass over some of the things that we worked on, fixed, and then had to work on again. So just a shout out there to our first principle, do no harm. Let's get to our cherry on top. I promised you one cherry on top, something that will really turn the heads of all the musicians that you play with, and that's to actually print their parts for them. It's a super generous thing you can do. You should tell them you're going to do it so they don't print, you're wasting paper and all that. But let me show you exactly how you can do it so it looks and feels great. It's super easy, actually. Okay, if you're going to go to the trouble of printing parts for the musicians that you're playing with, don't do this. This is just regular old at the end of the cash register Office Max. It's fine, but it's not really that helpful. It doesn't stay really great on stands. It can be hard to read. It's almost see-through. You know, if you want, treat yourself to a little 20-pound vellum, which is like this cream-colored cardstock. It's a little bit thicker. It's not super thick. It's not like 60 pounds or something like that, but it's got some heft to it. And it makes the notes actually jump off the page a little better. It's super fun to bring these to gigs and pass them out. And, you know, everybody's like, oh, fancy pants. It's really not a big deal. You can get it anywhere. And it just is a little bit of a nicer presentation. And speaking of printing things out, while we're talking here, go buy some ink. Some black ink. You know you need some black ink right now. Even if you have a little black ink, go buy more because you know you're gonna need some. So we have printed out our parts here, right? I've got our nice Lazy Bird arrangement with like the grand staff. Very cool, but it's 2 pages. Okay, well, if it's 2 pages, there's another really cool thing you can do as a service to your fellow musicians that makes everything a lot easier. I love doing this. It makes me feel like I'm some kind of pro Tin Pan Alley arranger or something. Check this out. Okay, we've got our chart here. We only need a couple things, some scissors and some tape to make this day go from good to great. We're going to keep it here in order, and we're just going to flip it, right? So this page goes over here. Bam. And this doesn't have to be that hard. This is another thing that you see people over or under think. You really only need one layer of tape. Line it up, cut it, just like that, flip it, cut the excess off the end, bam, there it is. There's your Lazy Bird. It's taped up, it's ready to go. You can smooth it out a little bit on the ends if you want, but this works great. It doesn't take too long to do, and now you've got this like beautiful taped up copy of Lazy Bird. It looks good. It's clear. It's simple, right? It does no harm. And bam, you put that on anybody's stand and they're going to play that just as it's written. Super fun, right? Those little things, they make a huge difference when we're performing. So again, don't be lazy.
So just do it! Make your dreams come true! Just do it!
Seriously, just do it. Do the work. Do the little things that make the big difference, and then your whole band gets their head out of their stands and connected with you, connected with the audience, connected with the music. This video, of course, is brought to you by Open Studio. Go to openstudiojazz.com for a deeper dive on everything. And until next time, happy practicing. Peace, everybody.